Governor Kuroda, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I wanted to start by asking you about the Japanese economy because we've seen a pretty strong growth streak. What happens next? What's your forecast?
You see, in the last 8 quarters, the Japanese economy recorded positive growth in every quarter, and the average growth rate in the last 8 quarters is close to 2%, which is well above Japan's potential growth rate of about 1%.
Everything is not enough. Feeling out by the ocean, among all those white hot sands, where every sunrise is just for you. So come along and take my hand.
Japan had a quite a good year last year. Growth is around 1%. And this year, the growth may be a little bit of a slowing down, but most importantly, and people obviously how this MP3 sort of a monetary policy support the fiscal expanding policy really work. Do you see that work well in Japan?
Actually, the Japanese economy has been growing 1 to 1.5% in the last several years, and we expect the Japanese economy will continue to grow by 1 to 1.5% this year as well as next year. Now, domestic demand has been fairly strong, particularly business fixed investment has been quite robust.
Do you think that it is, as the man who was responsible for producing this extraordinary monetary stimulus, that you should serve another term in order to see it through to the unwinding and finish off the process?
I don't know. The appointment of BOJ governor is decided by the cabinet with consent or approval by the Diet. So it's completely outside of my responsibility.
Would you like
Anyway.
to serve another 5-year term? Are you willing to serve another? I can ask the Prime Minister tonight if you like.
I would like to. I would like to.
Are you willing to? Would you be willing to serve another term?
Avoid to answering directly, but I can say that exiting from the QQE with yield curve control. I mean, like the Fed, there may be some challenging issues, but I'm quite sure that BOJ has enough tools to manage the situation faced by exiting process. We have.
Here we are in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and you know this has become increasingly a global conference.
Yeah.
And I think right now, at this point,
Yeah.
in the global economy
Yeah.
and in global central banking,
Yeah,
there are some very strong trends. And one of them, of
Yeah.
course, I would
Yeah.
say the big conundrum right now
Yeah.
is inflation.
Yeah.
All three major central banks
Yeah.
are missing their inflation targets, even though growth is stronger. What is the reason for this? And
Yeah.
does it lead you to consider, gee, maybe
Yeah.
we should focus more on growth because we're succeeding there,
Yeah.
and kind of pull away from these inflation targets?
You see, certainly not only Japan but also US and Europe, they are not yet at the range of inflation target. But there's some difference between Japan on the one hand and US and Europe on the other hand. In all three economies, wages are not rising so fast. But in the US and in Europe, inflation rates are actually close to their target, close to 2%. But in Japan, inflation rate is still 0.5%, far away from our 2% target. So there's some difference between US and Europe on the one hand and Japan on the other hand. I think Bank of Japan must continue very strong accommodative monetary policy for some time. It's necessary, but we are
Years?
confident. Oh, it's according to the latest forecast of the policy board, it's around fiscal 2019. So maybe 1 to 2 years time, but this is only forecast. And still board members think that there's downside risk bigger than the upside risk. So risks are skewed toward downside. So anyway, what is necessary for the Bank of Japan is continue our accommodative monetary policy until really economic inflation rate reaches 2%.
You've just started your new term. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
How is this term going to be different than the last?
In the last 5 years, we implemented very accommodative, expansionary monetary policy so that the economy greatly improved. Now the economy is growing close to 2%. Unemployment rate is only 2.5%. The corporate sector enjoys historic high level of profit. So the real economy is doing quite well. But inflation rate, excluding fresh food, is still around 1%. And if you exclude energy items, then inflation rate is only 0.5%. So that means that in the last 5 years, monetary policy was successful in improving the real economy greatly, but inflation rate has not yet reached the 2% target. So in the next 5 years, we will continue our accommodative monetary policy, expansionary monetary policy to reach 2% price stability target or inflation target. And then, of course, we have to start normalization.
Are you thinking about that?
Oh yeah, because we think that it will not take another 5 years to reach 2%. and that means that sometime within the next 5 years, we will reach a 2% inflation target, and we start discussing how to gradually normalize the monetary conditions so as to maintain around 2% inflation rate with strong economic growth.
Does it worry you at all that the other major economies in the world are already there?
Yeah.
They're already normalizing and
Yeah.
moving off of
Yeah,
zero
yeah,
interest
yeah,
rates.
yeah.
And you're not there yet.
I think that is quite natural because